Zubena was a young woman whose heart was as pure as a flowing river. She grew up in a modest home, raised with values of kindness, patience, and humility. Her beauty was soft and natural, but it was her gentle spirit that truly drew people toward her. When word spread that she was chosen to marry into the household of Chief Mugwali, the most respected elder in the village of Ojonma, many were stunned. Some admired her good fortune, while others whispered with envy. Chief Mugwali was a man of great influence, wealthy, wise, and honored across neighboring villages. His compound was a place of authority, tradition, and pride. To marry into such a family was not just a personal gain, it was a rise in status, a door to a life many only dreamed of. Zubena was filled with gratitude and hope. She believed her marriage would bring happiness, love, and unity. With a hopeful heart and prayers on her lips, she entered the chief's grand compound, carrying nothing but her love and willingness to serve and respect her new family. But what she didn't know was that behind the walls of this beautiful home was a heart that did not welcome her, the heart of Kakuza. Kakuza was Chief Mugwali's second wife, the woman who had taken the place of his first wife, who passed away many years earlier. Though the villagers respected her, and she lived comfortably, Kakuza was a woman driven by control. Over time, she had built her influence in the household, and didn't like anything or anyone that threatened it. The arrival of Zubena, young, graceful, and full of promise, was something she never anticipated, and certainly never wanted. On the surface, Kakuza behaved as expected. She greeted Zubena with warm words, hugged her with smiling lips, and welcomed her in front of everyone. The compound echoed with songs, dances, and blessings, as Zubena officially became part of the Mugwali family. But beneath that painted smile, Kakuza's mind was already turning with silent schemes. Every time someone praised Zubena's beauty or admired her soft-spoken nature, Kakuza's heart twisted with bitterness. She saw the way people's eyes lit up when Zubena entered a room. She saw how the household workers quickly grew fond of her, and most of all, she noticed the growing attention her stepson, Tajo, gave to his new bride. Zubena, in her innocence, thought Kakuza's warmth was real. She treated her like a mother, served her meals, offered her help, and constantly sought her approval. She followed every tradition, respected every elder, and never raised her voice, even when tired or upset. She wanted to be the kind of daughter-in-law any woman would be proud of. But no matter what she did, Kakuza's hatred grew stronger in silence. In her mind, Zubena was not family. She was competition, a threat to her position, a danger to her authority. And so, slowly but surely, Kakuza began to study her, waiting for the perfect moment to bring her down. Zubena had no idea that her life was about to take a painful turn. She had entered the household with dreams in her heart, unaware that the very person she thought would guide and protect her would soon become the architect of her suffering. At first, everything seemed perfect. Zubena, with her warm smile and gentle nature, tried her best to adjust to her new life in the Mugwali household. She worked hard to earn everyone's love and respect, especially that of her stepmother-in-law, Kakuza. Every morning, Zubena greeted her with a cheerful voice, brought her meals, and treated her like her own mother. But little did she know, the same woman she was treating with kindness was silently plotting her downfall. Kakuza smiled in return, but behind that smile were hidden fangs, sharp, poisonous, and dangerous. Kakuza had mastered the art of pretense. She laughed with Zubena, complimented her cooking, and even called her my daughter in front of others. But in her heart, she was burning with jealousy and anger. The more she saw Zubena being praised, the more bitterness grew inside her. She hated how the household staff spoke kindly about Zubena. She hated how Tajo, her stepson, looked at his wife with admiration and pride. In Kakuza's eyes, Zubena was not a daughter-in-law, she was a threat. A young, beautiful woman who was slowly stealing the attention and power that Kakuza had enjoyed for years. So, Kakuza began her silent attack, not with weapons, but with words. She knew that to destroy Zubena, she didn't need to raise her hand. All she needed to do was poison the mind of Tajo. Slowly, she started whispering little things to him, planting tiny seeds of doubt that would grow into hatred over time. She didn't make it obvious. She was clever, calculating, and patient. She would say things like, "Tajo, I noticed Zubena is always outside. Do you know who she talks to?" Or she would sigh and say, "She's a good girl, but sometimes I wonder if she truly understands her place in this home." At first, Tajo didn't take her words seriously. He loved Zubena deeply and trusted her, but Kakuza never stopped. Day by day, she added more poison, feeding him lies in the sweetest tone. "Today, I saw her laughing with the servant boy," she would say with a concerned face. "I don't want to interfere, but I thought you should know. You're my son, and I only want the best for you." Tajo, caught between his love for his wife and his respect for the woman who raised him, began to feel confused. He started observing Zubena differently. The love in his eyes began to fade, replaced with suspicion. He became quieter around her, sometimes cold, sometimes distant. Zubena noticed the change but didn't understand why. She would ask gently, "Is something wrong, my love?" But Tajo would shake his head and walk away, leaving her feeling hurt and lost. Kakuza's plan was working. Without even raising her voice, she was breaking Zubena's world apart piece by piece. And yet, in front of everyone, she continued playing the role of the kind mother-in-law, smiling, praising Zubena in public, and pretending to care. But in private, she was turning her son's heart against his own wife, slowly choking the love between them without a single scar to show. The smile on her face hid the venom in her soul, and as Zubena tried harder to save her marriage, Kakuza watched silently, satisfied that her silent war was slowly crushing the woman she secretly hated. Zubena could feel it. Something had changed. The warm smiles she once received from her husband, Tayo, had slowly turned into cold stares. The laughter that once filled their home had been replaced with silence. Every little thing she did now seemed to upset him. If the food was too salty, he blamed her. If the room wasn't arranged perfectly, he scolded her. Even if the sun didn't shine bright enough that day, somehow it became Zubena's fault. She tried her best to please him, waking up early, cooking his favorite meals, keeping everything spotless. But nothing was ever good enough. Tajo, once a loving husband, was now distant, moody, and easily angered. Zubena was confused and heartbroken. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. She often sat alone, tears silently rolling down her cheeks, wondering how the love in her marriage had vanished so quickly. But what she didn't know was that behind all this pain was Kakuza, quietly pulling the strings like a hidden puppeteer. Kakuza had perfected her game. She knew exactly how to manipulate situations to make Zubena look bad in Tajo's eyes. Whenever Tajo was away, she would secretly spill water near the doorway or hide important items, only to later pretend to discover the mess in front of him. "Tajo, look at how careless your wife is," she would say, shaking her head with disappointment. "You deserve better treatment in your own house." One afternoon, Kakuza deliberately added extra salt to Tajo's food, while Zubena was out in the backyard. When he tasted it and frowned, she quickly pretended to be surprised. "Oh no, maybe Zubena is distracted these days. I told her not to rush when cooking, but she never listens." Tajo, already filled with doubt from Kakuza's earlier whispers, believed every word she said. The love in his heart was slowly being replaced with irritation. He began avoiding Zubena, staying out late and spending less time at home. And whenever he was around, his words cut deeper than knives. "You are careless, Zubena," he would say coldly. "You don't act like a proper wife." Zubena tried to explain, tried to show him the truth, but he refused to listen. "Don't argue with me," he snapped one evening when she gently tried to speak. "You always have excuses." Kakuza watched from the corner of the room, pretending to be sad, but secretly smiling on the inside. Every insult, every misunderstanding was a victory for her. She knew that once Tajo lost all his trust in Zubena, it would be easier to push her out of the house completely. And so, she continued her tricks, always careful, always 2 steps ahead. She would drop plates and later say Zubena did it. She would accuse her of ignoring her duties, even though Zubena worked tirelessly from morning till night. Zubena was slowly losing herself in pain. Her heart was heavy, but she didn't know who to turn to. Her husband, once her protector, had now become her greatest source of pain, and the woman she respected as a mother was the very reason her life was falling apart. But still, Zubena held on, hoping that one day Tajo would see the truth. Little did she know, the storm was only just beginning. Each day in the Mugwali household became more painful for Zubena. The woman who once walked into her new home with dreams and hope was now being treated worse than a servant. Kakuza, fueled by her hatred and jealousy, no longer even pretended to care. Her true colors began to show in full light. She started ordering Zubena around like a common maid, shouting at her from morning till night. "Sweep the compound again. You missed a spot," she barked. Wash those clothes properly. Are you blind? Kakuza made sure Zubena had no rest. While others sat and enjoyed their meals, Zubena was in the kitchen, scrubbing pots or fetching firewood under the hot sun. Even simple tasks were turned into punishment. Kakuza would deliberately dirty the floors just to force Zubena to clean them again. If Zubena cooked, Kakuza would throw the food away and complain loudly that it was tasteless. "This is not food. Even dogs wouldn't eat this," she yelled, making sure neighbors could hear. The humiliation was no longer hidden within the walls. It became public. Kakuza took pride in disgracing Zubena in front of the villagers. Whenever guests came, she would loudly insult her, saying, "My son married a lazy, useless woman. She can't even take care of a home." Villagers began to whisper. Some pitied Zubena. Others joined in mocking her. "Why does the chief's daughter-in-law look like a housegirl?" Some would laugh. But Zubena, though broken inside, never raised her voice. She never insulted Kakuza back. Instead, she bowed her head and did her duties silently. Her hands were full of bruises, her clothes often torn, and her face pale from stress and exhaustion. But her heart remained pure. She still respected Kakuza and still served her with the same humility as before. Not once did she complain to anyone, not even to Tajo, who now hardly spoke to her and looked the other way whenever she was humiliated. One morning, while Zubena was fetching water from the stream with a heavy pot balanced on her head, Kakuza called out, "Faster, or do you want the whole village to see how slow you are?" The villagers passing by stared at Zubena with pity. Some whispered among themselves, "This is not right. She is the chief's daughter-in-law, not a maid." But Kakuza didn't care. She wanted Zubena to suffer. She wanted to crush her spirit, to push her to the edge, to make her walk away from the marriage in shame. But Zubena didn't walk away. She cried alone at night, quietly wiping her tears so no one would see. She prayed silently, hoping for strength to endure another day. Her only wish was for peace in the home, for love to return to her marriage, and for Kakuza to see her as family, not an enemy. But no matter how hard she tried, things only got worse. And still, Zubena continued to serve. She swept, cleaned, cooked, and worked endlessly, not because she was weak, but because she was strong in spirit. She believed that patience and kindness could one day melt even the coldest hearts. But little did she know, her goodness was not going unnoticed. Somewhere in the shadows of pain, fate was quietly preparing a twist, one that would shake the entire village and reveal who Zubena truly was. The sun was just beginning to rise when Zubena left the house with her clay pot, heading to the river as she did every morning. The air was cool, the birds were singing softly, and the path to the river was quiet. It was the only time of the day when she felt a little peace, away from Kakuza's insults and Tajo's coldness. As she approached the riverbank, she noticed something strange. A figure sat on a rock, hunched over and barely moving. As she got closer, she saw it was an old woman, her clothes soaked and her leg badly bruised. The woman looked weak, as if she had been there all night. Without thinking twice, Zubena dropped her pot and rushed to the woman's side. "Mama, are you all right?" she asked gently. The old woman groaned in pain. "I slipped by the rocks," she whispered. "I cannot stand." Zubena quickly tore a piece of cloth from her own wrapper and wrapped it around the woman's wound. She fetched water, cleaned the injury with great care, and helped the woman sip some to stay hydrated. Then she sat beside her, massaging her swollen ankle softly with her hands. The old woman watched her silently for a while, then smiled weakly. "You are kind," she said. "Most would have walked past me like I was nothing." Zubena shook her head. "No, Mama. How can I ignore someone in pain? We are all human." The woman looked at her deeply, her eyes glowing with something mysterious, something powerful. "What is your name, child?" she asked. "Zubena," she replied softly. "Zubena," the woman repeated, almost like a whisper in the wind. Then she took Zubena's hands in hers. They were rough, cracked from endless chores, but warm with compassion. "You have a pure heart, my daughter," the woman said. "You are the kind of soul this world tries to break. But listen to me carefully. Those who trample you today will kneel before you tomorrow." Zubena blinked, a little surprised by the words. "Mama," the woman smiled, "you will rise above those who try to bury you. The heavens do not sleep. Your kindness will not go unrewarded. One day, this same river, where you suffer silently, will witness your glory." Zubena didn't know what to say. Her heart felt strangely full, like a fire had been lit inside her. She had spent so long feeling small, unloved, and unwanted, but this stranger's words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, giving her hope she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you, Mama," she said quietly, tears welling in her eyes. The old woman patted her hand. "Go now, but remember what I said. The winds of change are coming." Zubena helped the woman stand, and though she offered to walk her home, the old woman insisted she would be fine. She slowly disappeared into the trees, leaving Zubena standing at the riverbank, still holding her clay pot, but now carrying something far more powerful: hope. As Zubena walked back home, something felt different in the air. She didn't know who the woman really was, or how she had come to be at the river that day. But deep in her heart, she knew this meeting was not by accident. Something was about to change, something big. The days grew darker in Zubena's life, as if the little light she once held was slowly being snuffed out. Just when she thought things couldn't get worse, Kakuza struck again, this time with a plan so cruel, it shook the foundation of the household. One morning, Kakuza returned from the market, but she was not alone. Walking beside her was a beautiful young woman named Tyena, elegantly dressed, full of confidence, and carrying herself like someone who knew exactly why she had come. At first, Zubena thought Tyena was just a visitor, but her heart dropped when Kakuza made a shocking announcement. "This is Tyena. She will be staying with us. Soon, she will become Tajo's second wife." Zubena's breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled, but she said nothing. She looked at Tajo, hoping he would speak up, hoping he would defend her, but Tajo remained silent, avoiding her eyes. The man she had once loved deeply now stood like a stranger, letting his mother decide the course of their marriage without protest. Kakuza's plan was clear. She wanted to completely replace Zubena, not just in the household, but in her son's heart. From that day, Tyena was treated like a queen, while Zubena became a ghost in her own home. Kakuza showered Tyena with gifts, cooked special meals for her, and constantly praised her beauty and manners in front of everyone. "Look at Tyena," she would say loudly. "This is the kind of woman a man needs. Smart, graceful, respectful, not like some people who bring shame." Tyena, encouraged by Kakuza, treated Zubena with disrespect from the start. She would command her to fetch water, clean her shoes, and even wash her clothes. "Hurry up, Zubena," she would say with a smirk. "You're so slow." Sometimes she would intentionally spill things on the floor just to watch Zubena clean it up while she laughed. Zubena's life became worse than that of a servant. She ate last, after everyone had finished. She slept alone in a small dusty corner of the house while Tyena was given her place beside Tajo. Every day brought new humiliation, new pain, but Zubena still said nothing. She held her head high, even when her heart was breaking inside. Villagers began to notice the change. Some whispered, "Why would Tajo allow this? Zubena has done nothing wrong." Others, cruel and entertained by gossip, mocked her behind her back. But Zubena continued to serve. She swept the compound before sunrise, cooked meals without complaint, and cared for the household with quiet dignity, even though she was treated like she didn't exist. Kakuza was delighted, thinking her plan was succeeding. She believed Zubena would eventually give up and leave in shame. But what she didn't know was that Zubena's silence was not weakness. It was strength. A silent storm was building behind those tired eyes and bruised hands. She may have been broken on the outside, but deep within, her spirit was unshaken. And though Kakuza smiled with triumph, she had no idea that fate was watching, and karma was patiently waiting. It was a quiet afternoon, and the house was unusually still. Zubena had just finished cleaning the kitchen when she remembered an old box that had belonged to her late mother. It had been tucked away in the storeroom for years, untouched and gathering dust. Something inside her told her to open it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was fate calling her. She carefully pulled the box out and wiped off the dust. As she opened the lid, she saw some faded clothes, beads, and old documents wrapped in cloth. But tucked at the bottom was a sealed letter, old, yellowed by time, yet untouched. Her hands shook slightly as she opened it. The ink was slightly faded, but the words were clear enough to read. Her eyes widened with every line. It was a letter from her late father. But this wasn't just any letter. It was a shocking revelation. Her father had once been the rightful king of Dumara Kingdom, a prosperous land far beyond the borders of Ojonma village. He had written the letter before his death, afraid that enemies who had stolen the throne would come after his family. So, he had kept his royal identity a secret and lived a quiet life in Ojonma, hoping to protect Zubena from the danger that followed his bloodline. "You are my daughter, Zubena," the letter read. "You are the last living heir to the throne of Dumara. One day, when the time is right, you must return and claim your place. Never let anyone make you feel small, for royal blood flows in your veins." Zubena sat still for a long time, her heart pounding. Everything she had ever known about her life suddenly changed. All the humiliation, all the insults from Kakuza, all the pain, none of it defined her. She was not just a servant in her own home, she was royalty, a true princess, hidden by fate but chosen by destiny. She knew she couldn't face this alone, so she took the letter and went to see Elder Baramo, the wisest and most respected elder in the village. He had known her parents long ago and had always watched her silently with kind eyes. When she showed him the letter, he read it carefully and then looked up at her with deep emotion. "My child," he said softly, "I always suspected there was something special about you. Your mother once confided in me, but we never spoke of it again. This letter confirms everything. You are the rightful heir of Dumara. You must prepare yourself. Your journey is only beginning." Zubena was overwhelmed, but she felt a new kind of strength rising within her. For so long, she had suffered in silence, thinking she was powerless. But now she realized that her silence had been her shield, and her time had come to rise. With Elder Baramo's guidance, she began learning about her royal heritage. He taught her the history of Dumara, the customs of her people, and the responsibilities of a true leader. While Kakuza and Tyena continued their wicked games, Zubena was slowly rising from the ashes, not with revenge in her heart, but with purpose. She was no longer just Zubena, the maid in her own home. She was Zubena, the future queen of Dumara, and soon the world would know her name. The winds of destiny began to shift. With Elder Baramo's help, Zubena prepared herself for a journey that would change everything. She traveled to the Dumara kingdom, carrying her father's letter and the ancient royal seal he had hidden away. The elders of Dumara, wise and respected, gathered in the royal court to verify the truth. They examined the letter, the seal, and even tested her knowledge of the royal bloodline passed down through generations. After days of discussion and rituals, there was no doubt left. The royal blood truly flowed in her veins. The kingdom had finally found its lost heir, the true daughter of the late King Zamora. The elders rose to their feet and declared it boldly. "Zubena is the rightful queen of Dumara." Drums echoed through the kingdom. Joyful songs filled the air. The people of Dumara rejoiced, welcoming their new queen with open arms. She was not just a ruler, she was a symbol of hope, strength, and grace. The same woman who once walked with a bowed head now stood tall with a crown upon her head. The news spread like wildfire beyond the borders of Dumara. Word reached Ojonma village quickly, and it hit the people like a storm. The same villagers who had once whispered behind Zubena's back now stood in shock. The woman they had seen carrying firewood, the woman mocked and humiliated like a maid, was now a queen. The story traveled from home to home, from market to market. People couldn't stop talking about it. Kakuza's face turned pale when she heard the news. Tyena dropped her water pot in disbelief. Tajo, the man who had once loved her, but later abandoned her, was speechless. The entire household that had once made Zubena suffer now trembled in regret. The royal guards from Dumara arrived at Oyonma, announcing a grand invitation. Zubena had requested a visit to her former village, not for revenge, but for closure. When she arrived, dressed in royal attire and surrounded by her guards, the villagers gathered in awe. Some knelt, some cried, and others simply bowed their heads in shame. The same people who had mocked her now couldn't even meet her eyes. Zubena remained calm and graceful. She held no bitterness, no anger, only quiet strength. When she stood before her old home, Kakuza came out trembling, trying to force a smile. Tyena stood behind her, hiding her face. Tajo stepped forward, trying to speak, but his voice cracked with guilt. But Zubena said nothing cruel. She simply looked at them and said, "The pain you gave me shaped me, but it never broke me. I thank you, not for your kindness, but for your cruelty. It made me stronger." Her words cut deeper than any punishment. The villagers praised her wisdom and strength. Songs were sung in her honor, and children danced in celebration of the queen who had once been forgotten. Zubena had not only claimed her crown, she had earned the respect of 2 kingdoms. Her rise was not just about royalty, It was a lesson for every soul who had ever been pushed down, mistreated, or made to feel worthless. She had risen, not with vengeance, but with dignity, and her story became a legend told for generations, how the humble girl they tried to ruin became the queen they could never forget. Tajo sat alone in the quiet of his once busy home. The air that once carried laughter now echoed with silence and regret. Tyena, the woman Kakuza had brought into the house to replace Zubena, had shown her true colors. The moment she saw Tajo's fortunes declining and Zubena's royal status rising, she packed her things and vanished without a word. She had never loved Tajo. She only loved what he could offer. Now that everything was gone, so was she. Tajo felt the heavy weight of his choices. He remembered the gentle smile of Zubena, her quiet sacrifices, her kind heart that never fought back even when she was treated like a slave. He remembered her cooking meals even after long hours of humiliation. And now, she was a queen, respected, adored, powerful. The same Zubena he turned his back on was now walking in royal robes while he sat in a house full of shame and emptiness. Unable to hold his guilt any longer, Tajo decided to go to Damara. He hoped to see her, to apologize, to kneel before the woman he had wronged so deeply. When he arrived at the palace gates, the guards stopped him. He begged to see the queen, claiming to be her husband. The guards laughed bitterly. You had your chance when she needed you. Now she doesn't even speak your name. Back in the village of Ojonma, Kakuza's fate took a dark turn. With Zubena now crowned and her truth exposed, people began to speak openly about Kakuza's wicked deeds. Her manipulation, her cruelty, her lies, everything came out. The elders held a village gathering, and after hearing all the stories and testimonies, a decision was made. Kakuza was banished from the family and stripped of her respect in the village. No one wanted to associate with her anymore. Even the neighbors she once gossiped with turned their backs on her. She was forced to leave the home she had once ruled with pride and was now seen wandering the village streets, begging for food. The same people she had once looked down on now passed her without pity. The same tongue that once spoke cruel words now trembled, asking strangers for scraps. One day, Zubena returned to Ojonma for a village ceremony. Dressed in royal robes, her presence filled the air with grace and power. As she stepped down from her chariot, the villagers knelt to greet her. Among the crowd was Kakuza, dirty, weak, and holding an old bowl in her hands. Her eyes met Zubena's, eyes once filled with hatred now drowned in tears. She fell to her knees and cried out, "Forgive me, my daughter. I was blind. I was wrong." But Zubena stood quietly. Her face was calm, but her heart had already moved past the pain. Without speaking a word, she turned and walked into the gathering, leaving Kakuza behind. That silence said more than words ever could. The villagers watched in awe. The queen had no need for revenge. Her grace was her power, her dignity, her crown. And Kakuza? She became a living lesson, a symbol of how cruelty always returns to its sender. While Zubena rose high like the morning sun, Kakuza was left in the shadows of her own deeds. The sun shone brightly over Damara Palace, but it was Zubena's presence that truly lit up the kingdom. She now walked with grace and dignity, her head held high, her heart full of wisdom. Life had taken her through storms, but she came out stronger, unbroken. People from every corner of Damara, and even from far-off villages like Ojonma, came just to catch a glimpse of her. To them, she was not just a queen. She was living proof that no matter how deep the pain, the spirit can rise above it. Yet beneath her calm and regal smile, there was a quiet memory, a memory of the pain she once endured, the cruel whispers, the humiliation, and the endless tears she had cried in silence. Zubena never allowed that pain to turn her bitter. She chose forgiveness, not because they deserved it, but because she deserved peace. When Tajo sent messengers again and again, begging to see her one last time, she finally agreed to meet him, not as a wife, but as a queen. He arrived trembling, broken by guilt and regret. He knelt before her, tears in his eyes, choking on his words. "Zubena, I am sorry. I failed you. I see that now. If I could go back, I would change everything." She looked at him quietly, her eyes soft but distant. Tajo, she said, her voice steady. I forgave you a long time ago, but forgiveness does not mean returning to the pain. I have moved on, and so should you. Tajo bowed his head, knowing he had lost not just a wife, but a woman whose worth he never truly saw until it was too late. As for Kakuza, the woman who once ruled the household with cruelty, she now lived a quiet life in a tiny hut outside the village. The villagers often passed her without speaking. Children were told stories of her wickedness, and mothers used her name as a warning. Don't grow up to be like Kakuza. Yet Zubena never sought revenge, never cursed her, never spoke ill of her. In fact, she once sent a basket of food through a palace guard, quietly helping from a distance. But she never visited her again. She never forgot what was done. She knew that some wounds may heal, but the scars remain, and that's okay. The scars reminded her of her strength, her journey, and her rebirth. Over time, Zubena's story became legend. Her name was sung in folk songs, her portraits painted in village halls. Young girls were named after her, and elders spoke of her wisdom during festivals. She became a symbol of silent endurance, of rising above hate, of walking with dignity even when the world tries to break you. Whenever someone in the village faced injustice, they would say, "Remember Queen Zubena. She rose from ashes to royalty." Her story gave hope to the hopeless, courage to the broken, and lessons to the proud. Zubena had once been a simple girl, treated like a maid, ignored and insulted. But now, she stood as a queen, not just in title, but in spirit. She forgave, but she never forgot. And that balance of grace and wisdom is what made her unforgettable. Her story didn't just end in the palace. It lived on in hearts, passed from one generation to the next. Because in every village, in every home, her tale echoed. No matter who tries to bury you, if your heart is pure, you will rise. If this powerful story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. How many Zubenas are around us? How many kind souls suffer in silence, yet rise like queens through grace, strength, and dignity? Let this story be a reminder that no pain is permanent, no cruelty goes unpunished, and true hearts always shine in the end. If you believe in karma, if you believe in silent strength, if you believe that goodness always wins, then don't just watch. Be a part of this journey. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment below and tell us what inspired you the most. And if you want more heart-touching, powerful African tales like this, don't forget to like this video, share it with your loved one, and subscribe to our channel for more soul-stirring stories that stay with you forever. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world to us. Stay strong, stay kind, and always believe in the power of a pure heart.